Hey everyone, it's Daniel Elwood and Robert Johnson, the Last Nighters. And the Last Nighters are part of the Launchpad Media, where they're always launching new ideas in your direction. Check it out at thelaunchpadmedia.com. We are going to be talking about Joker tonight, so it's going to be spoilers, and more spoilers. If you haven't seen it yet, go see it, and then rewind the tape, come back, and check this out, lastnighters.com/94 for the show notes and more. And we were intending to have our Batman man from Australia join us, but he has come down with some kind of illness, some sickness. He is in the hospital at the moment. So we had another friend who reached out to us a few weeks ago and said, hey, I just saw Joker. It's awesome. I want to talk about it. And I was like, oh, well, we're already committed, but you can be our backup plan, our backup quarterback, if you will. And his number got called. We're putting him in, coach. It's Captain A, who is our guest for Crazy Heart. How are you doing, sir?
Excellent. Funny you actually said that, because somebody asked me to play that song tonight, and I did not.
Oh,
Put me in, coach.
Asked for the credence, huh?
I didn't want to play it.
Well,
yeah,
I appreciate
playing their World Series games or whatever.
Oh, okay, yeah,
not
yeah.
The World Series. Excuse me. We are one game away from the World Series.
Right now, is that tonight? Verlander's on the mound.
He was. Yeah, we lost.
And this
comes back to
and
Houston.
This is the Houston's beating the New Yorks. Is that right?
Yes, it's the Houston Sluggernauts versus the Atlanta Braves.
Oh, the Braves.
That's not true.
Well, who's beating up on the New York Yankees?
It's Houston.
No, it's Houston. Yeah, it's totally Houston.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
Yeah, it is.
You can tell how closely I follow it.
Yeah, now it's 3-2 though, right?
Yep, the Astros and the Yankees coming home. Yeah. Tickets are ridiculously expensive, not worth it. I will stay at home and watch it on TV.
Hey, the best seats in the house. You see it way better. Beer's much cheaper. Come on, seriously.
Yep. I just found out I got free cable, and so just like floating cable channels, I don't know. And so I did it the other day, and I get the 4 main propaganda channels, and then there's 65 total. So that's the 4. The other 61 are a mix of home shopping networks, religious channels, and Spanish channels.
Oh, yeah. All the entertainment you need.
Life is complete. Life is complete.
Yeah. Yeah, you are crushing life right now.
Yeah, so you just put this show on top, and then you that's all the entertainment that you need.
Yeah. No. If I die tomorrow, it'll be okay. It'll be okay.
All right. Well, let's remind your audience a little bit about you, and then we will get into the Google description and start this thing off.
Me, I'm Scott. What am I supposed to say about myself? I've been snagging around in Liberty since 2011. Ron Paul suckered me in, I think, like most of us. The infamous Rudy Giuliani moment, which makes it really crazy whatever Giuliani's doing now, because I don't know if he's trying to redeem himself. Maybe, I don't know. Going after some of those Joe Bidens. I would have a really hard time hating Rudy Giuliani if he took down Joe Biden and his son. That'd be really tough.
No, I can still hate him. I mean, it's not a situation where the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I think there's all bad people, and sometimes they take each other out.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I can see you appreciating sometimes, like a stop clock. Sometimes they're right twice a day. That's
probably where it's at. Just appreciating it, just like the same way I appreciate that Trump forever took down Jeb Bush. Please clap.
Right.
Please clap. That's the greatest moment I think ever. But nope. And now we're here, and I yell on the internet and cause firestorms. And my favorite thing to do as far as politics goes is getting the first comment in on a news article so you can sway the opinion.
Yeah, that really does set the trend, right?
Yep.
Yeah, get a lot of engagement that way.
Because nobody's going to read the article. Nobody does. So if you can get in
the first paragraph and then you go down to the comments, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Not even that. Like Facebook pages, no way. They read the commentary that goes along with it and the title.
Yeah, headline and then go straight to the comments.
Mm-hmm.
What are other people thinking? Because I have no ideas of my own.
Yep. No, but man, if you can get in there and say like the first comment inside like a 2-minute window, you can sway some shit. One of my best ones was off of, I think, a New York Times article. But at the same time, that might have been the only time I got hate mail.
That's a badge of honor, sir.
Yeah. Now you have this streak of not getting any Facebook jail time, which I just got about a week ago. And a few days prior to that, one of our YouTube channels was taken down. So we must be doing something right. I don't know what.
That's right.
Oh, God. I absolutely thought that it was going to happen the other day because I said trannies. That's what you got banned for.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. When you're speaking.
You got knocked off for it. I said it, and I'm still there.
Yeah, I guess the proper nomenclature, dude, is trans or transmission. You can't say tranny.
But here's a question. Did you just write it? Because I had mine in quotes.
I did just write it, yeah.
Oh, distinction.
Because that was the only thing I did different, is I was making a quote as a comment about, like, if you don't do this, then you're this. And I had the word tranny in there. And as soon as I said it, I giggled because I was like, Daniel went down for this. Nothing. I'm still here. My streak continues. I mean, I got warned on that photo for LeBron with China. Or no, not China, with the Hong Kong protester. Facebook. It warned me that my photo was censored, but it didn't do anything.
My count is a strike. I think you get a certain amount of leeway at first, but then if you're a repeat offender, apparently this was my third infraction of some sort, though I don't recall what the first two were. And this one was the only one that was called hate speech. Like it said, oh, you did something in January, you did something in March, and then you just did something now. And this one was hate speech, which I'm like, okay, how is that hate speech? What did I do?
Hey, well, naming a tranny or even mispronouncing their name is violence against a tranny person. So
yeah, according to that town hall, you can't mispronounce anything.
According to that insane person, you cannot do that.
Because the words
are apparently the insane
violence.
People are the ones that we're all listening to these days and doing what they say.
But anyway, the Joker was awesome.
Yeah, let's start talking about that. Because ostensibly,
Google description.
God almighty.
This is a review of this movie. So,
dude, I don't know the last time I had a movie where when I'm sitting there watching it, I was worried just because I thought it was funny that it was happening to me. I was worried my girlfriend was going to notice that my heart rate was actually increasing when he was standing in front of the curtain there at the very end before he was about to go on.
Wow.
Because oh God, he did such a good job of building up this insane amount of intensity where you knew he was about to snap and you were just on edge waiting for it.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. And, we normally start off with the Google description, so let's get that out of the way, and then we'll get into our discussion here. I think we're going to have plenty to talk about. So this starts out with Joker 2019, drama/thriller, 2 hours and 2 minutes, 8.9 IMDb, 68% Rotten Tomatoes, and 59% Metacritic. However, 94% of Google users liked this film. The description is, forever alone in a crowd, failed comedian Arthur Fleck seeks connection as he walks the streets of Gotham City. Arthur wears two masks, the one he paints for his day job as a clown, and the guise he projects in a futile attempt to feel like he's part of the world around him. Isolated, bullied, and disregarded by society, Fleck begins a slow descent into madness as he transforms into the criminal mastermind known as the Joker. Came out October 4th, 2019. The director is Todd Phillips of Road Trip and The Hangover fame. The budget was $55 million, and it is already smashing records for an October release. It's getting a lot of critical panning and a lot of mainstream media attention about it being dangerous and subversive and inciting violence and all these things. But then people go and see it, and it's actually a pretty powerful film. And in fact, I think it's so good that it's not just a comic book film, and it could even be a good film with a very strong impact, even shedding this comic book skin. But Robert, let's get your take on the Google description, then we'll go to Scott.
Well, Dave Cohen had an interesting idea. I don't know if it was an original idea or not, but that all this negative press is all contrived and it's all an attempt to get it attention. And that, the press come out and trash it and call it dangerous and all this stuff. And then the regular Joe lunch pails go out and go, what? No, this is actually good, and go out and defend it. I don't know where I lie on that. I don't think it's a big conspiracy. I think that there are these social justice warriors, and I think that they really do try and do some clickbait articles, but a lot of them really do believe this. Cultural Marxism really is a real thing, and it's really coming out of the colleges, and they really do see this as a troublesome, white male, dangerous narrative movie, and they really don't like it. And I freaking love this movie. I thought it was so impressive, just from at every level. I was blown away by the music. I was blown away by the directing, the cinematography, the acting, just across the board is fantastic. And I really, I could see a few nitpicks, and I'm sure we'll get into those nitpicks. Since we're doing a completely spoiler thing, There are a few things that I was, a little bit less than blown away by. They were all story related, but the craftsmanship in this film is incredible. And the fact that it's Todd Phillips, you're like, wait a minute, what? This guy directed this movie? This is like a labor of love. Like every shot is lovingly crafted. Every scene is all, well thought out and brutally impactful. And it is fantastic. It's a great movie. Those are my initial thoughts.
All right. Well, that's very good. And I echo many of those sentiments. And I think Todd Phillips, he started a controversy a few years ago saying that in this PC woke culture, it's getting harder and harder to make comedy films. And so that's why he started changing into more serious type of work. And you see that here. And I think whatever he did just prior to this, it was War Dogs, which we actually talked about a couple of years ago. And so, and that sets the scene actually really well, because with how the Disneyfication of movies and the SJWism of movies, we're almost half expecting a movie about the Joker to come out and be the woker, be a totally woke woke fest. But this totally was not that, though it does still have a lot of leftist sentiment and elements to it. The kill the rich, the class warfare and all that stuff.
They took away my welfare, and so I'm gonna be buried or whatever. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of that stuff, but that that just gives us fodder to talk about. But let's get Scott, your take on the good description and anything that Robert or I have said thus far, and then take us where you would like to go, because I know you were excited about this movie. I think the day of the release or the day after, you were IMing me. You're like, dude, I want to talk about Joker.
It was just. I think that was the first time in a movie in a long time where the character, no matter what you were doing, you were forced to relate to someone that you knew was just going to do some absolute evil shit. And like, not just relate, but sympathize to the point where you can actually understand and even say, I would do that same thing. Not the last scene, but the train scene. Yeah, no, I think anybody in the world would have done the same damn thing. And so it's so easy to sympathize with it. And I think that was the craziest part about this movie was it was just on another level scary because of how human it was. And otherwise, y'all's Google descriptions are fine. That was, excuse me, I'm sorry. Robert's description was spot on too. I don't have anything to add to that. I don't know the last time I walked out of a movie where I was you just couldn't shake the feeling because you just felt dirty for knowing, okay, if you pushed me in the right buttons like that, I think I would have reacted the same way. And
the subway scene I thought was a clear, at least at the beginning, of course, was a clear self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
And, only was he, the guy got away and he was running away to chase him down and kill him. Based on where he was in his world, and who he was killing, I understand why he chased him down and killed him. Like, he didn't want any witnesses to this because, when it comes down to his word versus the other guy, they were going to probably take this other guy's word for it. Even though the other guys probably had a blood alcohol level, and I don't know if that lady was going to testify one way or the other, but I could see him in his state of mind thinking, hey, this world's against me. No one's going to believe me. I gotta make sure there's no witnesses to this thing. So it was powerful.
Yeah, no. And then when he's sitting there and it's even just so creepy. Then when he's sitting there on the couch with his mother, well, the woman, and they're watching Wayne talk about the guys, and he's sitting there and he's like, these were good kids, yada, yada, yada. And he laughs because, it's like, what a fucked up thing for them to say when I know that these guys were trying to harass this young woman. And as soon as he laughs, the mom immediately chimes in, don't laugh. That's not, defending Wayne. And it's this creepy, God, how many of our parents are quick just to defend some media personality that they have seen forever and a day because they've got this odd trust in this person, when we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the people that these guys that he's defending were absolute trash. They were terrible people. And it was just instant. The lady's response time was even good about it, because as soon as he laughed, it's bang. hey, don't laugh. That's not funny. You know, these are good kids. It's like, God, that was tough.
Now, the mother had a very strong emotional connection to Thomas Wayne, and she'd worked for him 30 years in the past, and it's later revealed that she believes that he was the father of Arthur, and so she was living in this delusion and always thinking that he was going to become aware of their difficult living circumstances and swoop in and be her savior. And she's a bit delusional in this respect, but I could totally see why she would be coming to his defense like immediately when Arthur's laughing about that event. Now, she would also be aware that he has this laughing condition where he laughs at inappropriate times, and it's kind of displayed throughout the movie, and it's what kind of instigated the whole confrontation on the subway. I mean, yeah, they were harassing this woman, but then he was laughing about it, and they took offense to that and started bullying him. So, and they, of course, took it too far, and he was in a self-defense situation, at least with the first two. And, the whole movie, you're presented with this guy, and there's something not right with him just at the onset. He's got some issues, and you can clearly see that. And then throughout the film, he just hit setback after setback after setback, and I kind of saw that in the very long stairwell to get up to his street. It seemed like he was always struggling to get ahead or to get his head above water. Climbing up these stairs, and it was arduous, and he was kind of trudging, and he was trying to be normal. Trying to be seen and respectable in polite society. And then later on, when he's had all these setbacks and they just keep wearing him down in his descent into madness, when he becomes the Joker, he's skipping and dancing down these steps, and he's embracing it. He's embracing this fall from polite society, saying, hey, I'm who I am now, and I am okay with that. And yeah, he's a psychotic going to kill people guy who becomes, the Joker that we all know from the DC Comics lore. But I just saw like a bunch of symbolism in this film that was kind of related to not only the craft, but also, telling more to the story. I think this is a movie that could bear several rewatchings to kind of catch all of these little things that they're trying to convey. And I agree with Robert's sentiments that it was just extremely well done, and not something that I expected from a guy who, did the Hangover movies.
I didn't know.
This is a real step up in his evolution as the director. I don't know if he was capable of this kind of work all the time, or if he's learned some tricks and some things, or he's working with some really good and talented people. But for him to toss this out what's up? This is wow, bravo, sir, because this ranks among the best directing jobs I've seen in a long time. This is just right up there. I mean, this could easily win. Not that I give a shit about the Oscars, but this could easily win a half a dozen of those things.
Yeah, at least a
best categories.
Best actor,
at least deserving.
Yeah,
at least deserving. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, at least for actor and the score. The score is amazing, and it's the same person who did the score for Chernobyl, the HBO series. And
it was fantastic.
Yeah, and that alone made me feel like I was watching something on par with The Shining, with the music being kind of almost a character in the film, and it driving the emotional narrative. It's just driving and foreboding, and it was just so good. And I've actually they've got it on YouTube. You can stream the whole score, and it's even just cool background music to work to. But speaking of The Shining, there's a bunch of other films I kind of see referenced in this. One, of course, two of them, of course, are with Robert De Niro, and I think that's intentional. Why he's in this is because of Taxi Driver and King of Comedy.
Sure.
But then you also see elements of V for Vendetta, or Falling Down, or Death Wish, even with Chuck Bronson.
Yeah, well, you got your classic anti-hero. I'd say this guy's a little more crazy, which leads you into King of Comedy and Taxi Driver. But you got your traditional hammered upon protagonist that takes matters in his own hands and goes vigilante style, and then things kind of spiral out of control. I'd like to talk, before I get into the tie into the DC universe and that sort of thing. You did bring up earlier, Daniel, the question of Arthur's parentage, And I wanted to ask you guys, Daniel, you seem to think that Arthur was in fact just Penny's son, but I got the impression that it really was Thomas Wayne's son, and that Penny, that the whole thing was kind of manufactured to, get rid of an inconvenient child, and then, taking advantage of her. At least Arthur seemed to believe that in those flashbacks. So am I alone here in this, or did you guys also see that?
Well, I'll let you take that one, Scott, because I've got plenty to say on it.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I guess they did such a good job with portraying it like there was a real possibility that Wayne was lying about the whole thing. And then when he goes into the office and the guy gives him the record, well, he doesn't give him the records, he steals the records from the guy. And right there and there is the adoption form. It shows it. And so it's one of those where it's like, is this one of those moments where you feel so bad for him that you want to believe that that's the case because it's an easier story than saying he was an adopted kid who ended up in a shithole house. Whereas he just had a father who was a big name and he had to keep it quiet. I will say that this movie does a really good job of giving us scenes that are just in Arthur's head. So we're not exactly sure if this is really happening or not. So that leaves it some ambiguity, I think that's probably what throws me off is given the whole scenes with the woman, where he was acting out like he was dating her. That was a left hook. I didn't see that coming. I thought it was weird, but then I was like, oh, well, maybe she's just damaged. But then when they did that and they threw that left hook and you just knew he was imagining the whole thing, it's like, well, that sure does give a lot of credit to the idea that his mother really was delusional. And by this point, he has long since stopped taking his medicine, so it should be full kicking in. And the records, I don't know, the records at the hospital should have been, I don't see why they would have had any reason to lie about those.
Oh, see,
but they could have easily been faked by a man as powerful as Thomas Wayne.
Yeah, no, and that's true. It really could. It could have been completely made up, and considering it's the 70s when the movies happened, so put it sometime in the late 50s, early 50s, when that type of thing would have happened, you probably could have. It probably could have been really easily forged.
And those were the times when people could be put in a sanitarium with very little evidence.
Yeah, no doubt. And Thomas Wayne would have the ability to do such a thing.
So here I thought that I had this theory that was out there, and here you guys are talking nonchalantly about it.
Okay. No, whatever. Let's go, Daniel.
Well, I totally saw this as well, and maybe that's just my conspiratorial nature of like looking for connections to things. But yeah, I saw this as Arthur was the blue dress in the Clinton White House, and that Thomas Wayne went out of his way to gaslight the mother, to make her go crazy and thus get her institutionalized, forge all these documents, because you've got Arthur and the mother displaying these delusions. We see delusions introduced with when they're watching De Niro, Murray's late night show, and Arthur envisions himself in the audience and getting called out and invited up on stage and all of those things. And that's, he sees him as this father figure / savior. So they have this genetic link, right? If the delusions are nature versus nurture, then them both having the delusions is a check mark towards them being genetically related and him not actually being adopted.
Right. So So then that would mean that she actually did have him not adopted. So the adoption papers were faked. And if she's saying that Thomas Wayne is the dad, well, it could be anybody, but she's saying Thomas Wayne's the dad. How about a DNA test here? I mean, I know it's like the 80s, so they don't exist yet, but I don't know.
Well, but then on the flip side, how much can a traumatic childhood push someone into that state of the mind? Because, I mean, it seems to imply a good bit there that he was very abused, tied to a radiator, I think is what they said, and found beaten. And so it's like, how much trauma could one person go through to push them into being delusional? Whereas it's not genetic. I don't know. I don't know. That's something that's out of my league.
If that actually happened, that could be part of the gaslighting, could be part of the fake documents to get her institutionalized. I don't know, man.
Right, because that would have been supporting having her be into Arkham.
Yeah. They'd be like, this lady's crazy. That's not my kid. look at this. Look what she's doing to her kid. Lock her up. It's interesting. That's the beauty of this movie is you can see it different ways. You're just not exactly sure what's going on.
Flip side, it's like obviously Thomas Wayne had something invested in it, because why would you, if you randomly remember the woman, know a detail about her son being adopted? Like that's a really heavy detail to know about an employee that served with you how long ago? The mother was retired for a pretty good amount of time.
Yeah, she said 30 years.
So she worked from a long time ago, and he knows that she has an adopted child. So you could, that seems like something that I know this because I'm the one who made it. So
right, yeah, suspicious on that end too. But I've also talked to people who have watched this film, and they were like, "Oh no, I thought he was just adopted." So I don't know if we're reading too much into it, or if we're just noticing details that other people didn't.
Yeah, and this goes back to the unreliable narrator,
right?
And I'm wondering if there is not some giveaway for the scenes that are delusions versus the scenes that are not. Like maybe they used a different lighting scheme or a different film or a different whatever. Sometimes they'll do that for movies where they'll have different sequences or different components of the film be shot in different ways to represent certain things. And this one might perhaps be more subtle than most, but it would be an interesting thing to go back and look for to see, okay, because we know for sure that the relationship with the girl is totally in Arthur's head. And it becomes scary when he shows up in her apartment, and then you realize as an audience that, she doesn't know who the fuck that is on her couch.
Right.
Or she just knows him as the weird man down the hall.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Ugh.
Now, how did you guys feel about the scene in Arthur's apartment with the guy who had given him the gun and then tried to blame it on Arthur? And then the what's the proper term here? The very short, the little person, Gary.
Oh, this is a masterful scene. I thought it was gorgeous. The way he locked the door when they came in, and then when the little person couldn't reach the lock, and you're just like, oh, he's dead. But then Arthur lets him live, and then the murder was just absolutely brutal. So I thought it was all just fantastic. That whole scene was just really well done. Really had a lot of thought into it.
Yeah. Now, did you think that had the door not been locked or Gary had been able to unlatch it himself, that then Arthur would have let him go, and that was like the original plan? But because Gary couldn't reach, now Arthur's been inconvenienced, and that's enough to push him over the edge to just kill Gary too.
That could be the way, or he had just planned it.
Oh, right.
Like he walks in and he's like, "Hey, you can't reach this."
Yeah, I'll let you go. Not.
Yeah, I'll let you go. Go ahead. Come on. Why haven't you left yet? Oh, you can't? Oh, that's too bad for you.
Yeah, that reminded me of it's either a Saw movie or a Hostel movie where they say, yeah, if you can walk out of here, you're free to go. But then he cuts his Achilles. He can't walk.
Right.
Oh, no, that's,
you're given all the tools to get out, but do you really want to sacrifice those things?
Yeah. God, and that was so terrible, man. I had Achilles problems when I used to train for running, and seeing that, man, it really got me right in the gut.
Oh yeah.
No, Hostel with the eyeball cut. That was the one that got me. I didn't need that in my life.
Dude, all Hostel movies are Hostels and Saws. Those movies are they're rough.
It was so bad.
But if there's a lull in the conversation, let me jump in here and talk about the wider implications into the DC universe, because this movie tells a story that we've never heard before in terms of the origin of Thomas and Martha Way's murder, that being by political fanatics, and the movement that Arthur sets off, where there's this resentment about quote unquote rich people, whatever that means. And Thomas is actually running for mayor in this movie. And at one point he claims that he can get everybody lifted out of poverty by being a mayor. And I'm just like, that's not how it works. You're better off sticking to your day job where you work for Wayne Industries and you create wealth in the private sector. You don't create wealth in the public sector. Sir, as mayor, you would not be able to lift people out of poverty. All you can do is take from one hand and give to the other. So that was a little bit frustrating to hear that old canard again. But that's what politicians do. They promise to lift up the downtrodden, the vast majority, and then the majority, They're buying votes. That's what they do.
Right. And the mother, Arthur's mother, lapped up this rhetoric, and it actually supported her delusions that he was going to be her savior.
Yeah, 100%. She was loving it. She thought he was a great man, and she didn't want to hear any kind of bad talk about him. But what I loved about this story was that the first Joker goons are political fanatics, and that they are the ones that rescue him out of the cop car after he's been arrested, after he kills Murray, because these would be the people that would care enough about a political revolutionary figure to do that, because they see him as a righteous person doing righteous things, defensively, righteously killing the rich. And traditionally, Joker's goons have always just been other thug criminals that he somehow has their loyalty. But if you have a charismatic, whether you think he's charismatic or not, they see him as this messiah figure, and people will do crazy shit for messiah figures, political movements. This is the kind of crap that inspires these crazy loyalties enough for them to do that. And then also to go ahead and kill Thomas and Martha Wayne as a scene of righteous killing. This is what you get. You deserve this, rich boy. That sort of thing. So that's what I really loved about this angle on the old traditional Batman story, was this political aspect of it, because that's really what inspires people. It really gets people fired up, and it gets people feeling like they're doing the right thing, even when they're murdering and robbing people. Right, Daniel?
Right. So even though they're
right about this.
Even though they're wrong and doing a very evil deed, they see themselves as a hero doing a very good thing.
Right.
Yeah. And what is this, the 8th or 9th time we've seen the Waynes get murdered and the pearls come off the necklace and fall onto the ground?
He didn't have to do the pearls again. He really didn't. We've seen it so many times. But yeah. This is the best one. Let me say this. This was the best, not just because it was shot well or whatever, but the reasoning behind it. Because we've always just gotten either the Joker himself, who was Jack Napier in Batman 89, just as some, mafia thug, whatever guy, killing them for no apparent reason, just because they wanted to rob them or whatever. Or it's just some faceless goon killing them in Crime Alley. It's never been really explained. I guess it's never really been necessary. You're talking about the Batman. All you really need to know about Batman is his parents are dead, so he's got this revenge on crime drive in him to be the Batman, because otherwise it doesn't make sense for this rich playboy to dress up as the Bat at night and go fight crime. Right.
And then this movie kind of sets it up that perhaps they're brothers.
Yeah. Spicy.
God, it was such a trippy movie. But the crazy thing to me, though, and I say crazy. I only say crazy because of the fact that music is what I do for a living. I don't at all remember the soundtrack.
What?
I was I know. And I mean, y'all are saying it, and I'm like, well, I mean, obviously I know it was there. And I think there was one song that I can kind of remember just because I remember going, well, this is a fucking 70s funky ass song if I've ever heard one. But
that is the best soundtrack, right, though? I mean, if it blends in and it just enhances the mood, that's the best you can ask for, right? That it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb.
Well, we've got the score and the soundtrack. So what are you referring to? Are you referring to famous songs from the period that are in the movie, or are you talking about the score, the music that is tied to the film itself?
Just all of it. The score, all of it. Any songs that were actual music compared to just instrumental stuff that was done by an orchestra. I was so overwhelmed with just what was happening. And I mean, just, I guess, the constant build of anticipation. And I'm sure the music was there pushing it without me being aware of it.
It certainly was. It certainly was. That's how I noticed it, was just how it helped build the tension. You were just like, oh, shit's going down, that kind of thing.
It really did. By the time we got to him standing in front of the curtain, my heart was just pounding away, and I was like, God, man, I don't remember the last time a movie made me do this.
Yeah,
it's just, it was so overwhelming.
Speaking of that tension, Robert, and that slow build, I noticed that there were so many instances where all right, that's the turn right there, and then he's normal again for a little while, and then you're like, okay, that's the turn, and that happened 3 or 4 different times, and I think that was intentional to sort of play with you a little bit, build that tension, give you sort of this false release of that tension, and then build it again.
Sure. Yeah. No. That's what a good movie does. It just doesn't blow its load in the first act. You gotta tease the audience,
right?
Build that up. And I think it did a good job of that.
Because,
you're never quite sure when he's going to tip. And then when he does, it's so satisfying.
Yeah, it really doesn't happen until he is preparing to go on the Murray show and he leaves his apartment and skips down the stairs. But, when you see him right after killing the guys on the subway and he's like doing this interpretive dance in the bathroom, that's where he's like shedding his normal skin, I want to say, or his he's like sort of like coming out of his chrysalis, kind of discovering who he's about to become, Buffalo Bill style, like Silence of the Lambs.
The dance was a trigger. I mean, that was his trigger. I mean, the first time he fires the gun, he's dancing right there, and then he sticks it out and fires it. Same thing right after he fires it in the thing, and he goes in the bathroom and dances. Right before he goes on the set, he dances. And so it's like every time he would start doing that dance, it's like he was letting go and like just embracing what was about to happen. And,
yeah, I agree. I think he was letting go of who he was and embracing who he is.
Yeah, because I mean, even think about it when like the moment he starts doing it behind the curtain, there's those two producers that are standing there, and I remember the little bald guy. Like they both, just for being fucking side actors in 2 minutes of a play, they probably didn't even get their damn name other than producer behind curtain guy. And he's looking at him as he starts dancing, and like just that little subtle moment, you're like man, that dude's doing a great job of expressing how uncomfortable you would feel witnessing what this man is doing, just because it was just it's so eerie. And then as soon as the curtain goes, and I know that, oh man, I know that moment. As soon as the curtain goes, bang, he was on.
Yeah, and he had practiced that several times, kind of like walking through what he was going to be doing. And similar to the stairwell or, the stairs and him like trudging up the stairs, his movements in the beginning of the film, he has a shuffling gait and he's just kind of like awkwardly moving. But you're right, this dancing, it opens him up as he becomes the Joker. And by the end of it, he's like frolicking and dancing and like very fluidly moving. It's like, it's another, I don't know, maybe there's some symbolism to that, but he's like becoming more comfortable with who he is. And he's kind of, I don't know, like demonstrating that with the physicality.
Well, I mean, even maybe if you went in the idea of like folks using dance to go into like a trance,
Yeah, to let loose your nervousness and get out and shake out the jitters.
Yeah, and so the moment he does it, he just lets go, and because he does every time he does it is when he's like when he's standing there in the living room and when he scares the shit out of himself when he shoots the gun. He's just all of a sudden just slowly starting to just a little bit embrace that dance and just be kind of creepy, and then all of a sudden, bang, like it just happened so fast. And it's weird that you would expect him to realize that his gun was loaded, but it's like it still managed to shock him that he's now suddenly back in the reality of the situation, that, hey, I just fired a gun in the living room, when he was so totally immersed in that moment right before it happened.
Yeah.
He completely let go. And dude, that was a great film. I want to see it again in the theater before it kicks out.
Yeah, I think I do want to see it again, but I'll probably wait to purchase it and be able to watch it again. My wife and I, we've enjoyed The Shining many times. Robert hates that movie, but that's kind of Robert's trope, is disliking most of the movies we talk about.
Hey, I like good movies.
Like this one.
I like Joker.
But I wanted to also bring up another kind of initial thing that helps us sort of sympathize with Arthur, but then the same thing happens again, and then we don't like him. And that's when those, they call them gang members, but they're these younger kids that steal the sign from him in the very opening. And he's chasing them to go get this sign back. And then he gets beat up. And the owner of the clown company blames Arthur for stealing this sign from this business that's liquidating. And he doesn't believe Arthur. Like, why would I take the sign? The sign got destroyed. I got beat up. I mean, look at me. And the guy doesn't believe him. And I mean, we know the story, right? Like, we watched it as an audience, so we know that this guy's being totally unreasonable. But then later on, when he's confronting him again about the gun dropping out of his pocket at the hospital, and he's saying it's a prop or whatever, then we know Arthur's lying to him. And so it's almost like there's this justification that, yeah, he is going to get fired legitimately for that. But getting his pay docked and whatever for the initial, the sign fiasco was, an injustice.
Yeah, that was definitely an injustice. It seemed like his boss. I mean, we pick up the story at this point. We're not seeing their history, but all we have to go on is Arthur's story. And yeah, the owner is being not taking his side. He's not going to bat for Arthur at all. He's not believing him, and we don't know why. Maybe he's got reason to not believe him, but we don't know that. But it sure seems odd that, I mean, here you got your employee standing there telling you one thing, and he's got a bunch of bruises all over his body, and then it's just a sign. Like, what's the motive for him stealing a sign for a business? And then why would the business want that sign back? They're going out of business. I mean, you wait like a month, and then they won't exist anymore. Why do they give a shit? But
unless it's one of those furniture store or rug stores that are always going out of business, then they just change the name and have another going out of business sale.
One time,
everything must go.
One time I was at a Waffle House here, somewhere around Houston, and I remember the lady handed me the menu, and on it was this dinner special, and it had this like fancy little special thing around it. It was like super special discount, only $5.99. And I don't know why I did. I just happened to look at the lady, and I was like, how long has this thing been on special? And she just giggled. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I figured. So
it's the perpetual special.
Ever discounted. Yeah. Man, there were so many things that happened to him that you feel terrible. You just feel absolutely terrible. But then of course they do. They litter in those moments when he's sitting there at the clinic, and where they've removed our funding, and that's the end. And they make it seem like there's no other alternative. That's it. The moment,
and then it's
the government,
and then it's just the rich, whoever those are, that doesn't care about the poor people.
Yeah, and we're opening the film with there's a recession, and there's a garbage strike, and so there's garbage everywhere, and there's super rats. But even in a recession, the capitalist swine, they're suffering as well. The rich are suffering as well, as far as like things aren't as productive as they otherwise would. There are problems, and 99% of them are government related or central banking instigated. But this definitely does seem to be like pitting the rich versus the everyone else, and showing how hard people's lives are during a recession and during a garbage strike, and how filthy and difficult things are. And I guess that foments the V for Vendetta kind of vigilantism that gets inspired by Arthur's actions.
Well, and this mirrors the real world, right? I mean, you got people like Bernie Sanders talking about how the rich are always at fault, or they're the cause of all your problems.
Well, just the billionaires.
And he never really,
no longer the millionaires.
So no longer just the millionaires. Now it's just the billionaires, right. But back in the day, it was the robber barons who are always the bad guys, and there's always somebody that they can point a finger to, and it's never the right people. It's never the right people. I mean, sometimes they go, well, it's the bankers, but then they don't get why it's the bankers. They don't see the government involvement and the Fed and that sort of thing. They're just like, well, they just really greedy bankers. Like, yeah, okay, but why? This, it's yeah. But I like the fact that it mirrors the real world. So it's this class, pitting two classes against each other, because that's what government does, right? They're always like, well, we'll take from one class and give to the other, and kind of divide and conquer sort of thing.
Yeah, and make one class dependent on us.
Yeah.
And so then, you always have a contingent willing to vote for you. And you see it,
right.
Mencken was right. Every election is an advance auction on stolen goods. I mean, you've seen the Democratic debates lately. They can't give away enough,
It's a fire sale on other people's stuff.
Constant liquidation. We're going out
Everything
of business.
going out of business.
Every fire sale, everything. All right, so his girlfriend, the woman that he's with, so maybe, and you hinted at this with the idea that maybe there's like a lighting change, maybe, because the first time we see him go into the delusion, and he's watching TV, and he goes to the Murray show, his face, he's super relaxed, he's smiling, like when everybody's cheering for him, and he's like got his hands like claps together, and he's like just like totally sucking it in. And so it's like, maybe that's what we missed. Maybe whenever he's in the delusion, there is a gentleness to his face that does not exist when he is in the real world. And that is the giveaway as to when he's being just outside his mind. Because he seemed so content. And I thought it was just one of those weird love stories where why not? I mean, they live in the same building. They probably deal with the same shit considering they live in the same building and it's a crappy building. So why wouldn't they be able to have some weird relationship together? But
to build off that, I would say that if you're looking at it as a traditional like love story, I would say this love story doesn't work because you're not shown the parts where they're falling in love. But I've watched movies where that happens. Like they just kind of like have it, let the audience fill in the blanks of their romance, and then all of a sudden they're just together. I want to say like Punch Drunk Love is kind of like that. I can't think of another film off the top of my head, but I can see that kind of narrative sort of working. So I can see why you would buy that they're together, even though it doesn't seem like they have any chemistry that he's an appealing character in any way.
I did. I totally ate it. I mean, that was when he's sitting in the living room and I'm like, oh shit, she didn't even know. And that was just a slap in the face. I had no idea. And then they show the flashback and she's not there in any of it. And so that's why it's like, maybe that's how you tell the delusion is happening, is that when he's in the moment and he's delusional, his face is this gentle, like he is in that one moment where he's in the Murray show. Cause he just looks like he's so loved and he's just so caught up in it. And he's just smiling and kind of lean back and just soaking it in. And so I'm like, I wonder if that's...
He's got Murray. He's got Murray telling him he's the son he's always wanted. And he's just so happy. Yeah. He's got like a father's approval. And that's all he really wants. And,
He's got that shit grin on his face. It's like, I wonder if that's what it is. I wonder if that's the giveaway where once he's in the delusion, he's happy,
Yeah, it would be great.
So why wouldn't he look happy?
It would be great if there was a tell of some sort of like in Sixth Sense. I don't remember it like all that well, but apparently if you rewatch it, knowing that, spoilers everyone, Bruce Willis is dead in the movie.
What?
Then you can tell there's something about the interactions of him in the movie that would give it away if you noticed it. And so when you rewatch, you can actually tell that something's not quite right, and that gives it away that he was dead the whole time. And there are some deleted scenes apparently for Joker that have been referenced in some YouTube videos. And apparently there was supposed to be a cat that he interacts with in his apartment. And the cat is just like watching him, and they make it like the cat watching him is the interaction. And it happens every time he's in the apartment. But then in, I believe one of the scenes, you see a mirror and there's no reflection of the cat.
Okay.
So maybe when this comes out, we can all watch the deleted scenes and see what they were trying to do there. Because it would be interesting if the relationship with the woman down the hall was actually intended to be real. And then, they had to cut for time or whatever. So like, all right, let's take the imaginary cat, make it the imaginary woman. And bada bing, we got a movie here.
Or maybe the cat was like a superfluous thing. And then to make it a tighter film, they're like, well, we already have one imaginary element. We don't need two. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of multiple shocks. All of a sudden you're looking in the mirror and the cat's gone too. Because they do a really good job of constantly surprising you with a new level of totally fucked up Joker. Just what? God, that he's not a normal human being.
Yeah, what did you guys make of the two detectives that were kind of harassing him and following him around, and then they end up getting in an altercation with people on the subway themselves, and then the people on the subway fight back?
Well, they were actually investigating what they thought was a murder, which was inspiring this big old political movement. So I can see why they would probably actually get off their asses and try and find out who killed this person, these people. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on the cops. I thought it was well done. None of it seemed like a stretch or disbelievable. I liked how Arthur was pretty much just running away from them, and he kind of lucked into these Joker clowns, to his political movement people, to kind of hide in. And then, he wanted to clear the subway, so he was like firing his gun and trying to get people out of the way or waving it around and whatever. And the clowns were like, you know what, screw you, buddy. I liked it.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I guess you could say it in the sense that they did a good job of having the cops come around at just the moment when it's just an extra bit of salt to whatever is happening to the Joker. It's just one more thing. We're like, they came by today. That's the last thing I wanted. Oh, they called again. They want to talk to you. It is now a bad time. Just enough of a little bit of a pester. Then, yeah, as far as what happens to them, it's really hard to feel bad. They go in there waving their gun around, and people are pissed off.
Yeah,
They ain't got time for that.
I saw the cops as like cornering him. Like every interaction, they were getting closer and closer to like revealing that they knew he was the one who did it. And it seemed as if when he was preparing to go on the Murray show, he was also kind of contemplating killing himself. Like there was a scene where he was about to like crawl in the refrigerator, or he was practicing what he was going to say on the show, and then he was going to shoot himself or whatever. I think he went into the Murray show expecting not to come out of it, like sort of a suicide by cop thing, or if not killing himself.
Except you can't have the Joker kill himself because he's the Joker.
Well,
obviously
he's either the Joker or he's a Joker.
Okay.
Because
maybe
he's inspired this political movement. Anyone who was inspired by him could then become the Joker that we all know.
Okay, I'll buy that. That's possible. I would feel a little bit betrayed by that movie twist, but I could see it happening. How great though was that call when the show producer calls him and he's like, and we as the audience have no idea if this is really happening or not. That was fantastic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. At that point, you already know that he's fucked up and seeing shit. And it was like, oh, okay. But then there was that part of your brain where you're like, I don't know, that seems like something that a show would do. Like take somebody that they're absolutely laughing at and just soak it for everything that it's worth, every view that you can possibly get out of it. And it's interesting that he realized it, like he realized it, I guess, better than anybody else. Yeah. You called me the Joker, or you called me a Joker. And it's like he clearly fixated on it when everybody else is like, oh, well, this is kind of happening. I thought it was going to be one of those, like he actually does go on the show and does a comedy set, and that it's done in the antics of the Joker. Goodness. The movie was so intense.
Yeah, it was really good. How are we doing on time, Daniel?
We're probably at a good point where we could start to wind down and do some final summary and review with scores. So if you want to lead us off, Robert, then we can go to Scott and then I'll wrap it up.
Okay. Well, I am going to stop short of calling this movie a masterpiece, although it is masterly crafted. Amazing that it came from. I was like, man, is this where movies are at now? Movies are this good now? Or is this just like an anomaly? Because wow, this thing really came together. Every little bit was so well done. I love the setting. I love the alternate take on the Joker's story. I mean, that's one of the fun things about the Joker is that you never know, what his true origin is, or even what his true name is. And this is just another adding to the mythos. I will say though that, and this is not an original idea that I've had, just I've agreed with what other people have said after seeing the film, and that the Joker, at least in the Dark Knight series, the Joker is a masterful, intelligent, just schemer. Like he is coming up with all these master plans, and he is just a genius. And the only thing that beats him is this super dedicated billionaire with all these gadgets. And that he only loses because Batman's so pure-hearted and so talented and so skilled and so trained well and whatever. But that, Joker's always one step ahead with all his schemes. And this Joker is definitely not like a super intelligent schemer guy. Now, this is his origin story. So as one person I was talking to put it, this is like the early stages of his career, and maybe he moves on to another stage where he becomes more of a schemer guy. But I just don't know if I see this kind of mentally deluded, not super intelligent guy turning into that person. But this movie is just so great. It's just such a minor quibble. I coming from the comic book world, anytime you have a new writer, you're going to have a new take on a character. And so there have been hundreds of different takes on the Joker, and each one is equally valid. And this one just as so. I don't know if this is going to actually be considered part of the DCEU, or the CU, sorry, the DC Cinematic Universe, but it certainly could be, because, you know, it's the Joker, and you could have 1,000 Joker origin movies, and they could all be equally valid. That's what's so fun about the character. But yeah, this is just so well done. This is like a 9.0 or a 9.1. This is one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. It's definitely the best movie of the year that I've seen. It's probably going to be criminally ignored come award season, but I mean, who gives a shit? So yeah, that's my review for this movie. Go out and see it if you haven't seen it, or if you definitely need to have seen it if you're listening to this. So I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you disagree, I'd love to hear your reasons why. I know this movie is getting some negative reviews, but I haven't seen any negative reviews that I have respected their views. They seem to have other issues with the movie that are like minor quibbles or made up bullshit. So if you have some legitimate complaints, I'd love to hear those. But yeah, that's what I think. A 9.1 from me.
All right, very good. Well, Scott, take it from there. Give us your overall review and a score, please.
Yep. Easily the best movie I think I've seen. I think ever. Goodness, it was just incredible. The intensity, the realness of it, that you can put yourself in his shoes and sympathize with somebody that's so demented, is the scariest thing. It's like that. It's like a doctor. It's like a Jordan Peterson moment where it's forcing everyone to acknowledge the evil monster inside of them, whether they want to or not. You want to pretend like you can be a nice human being, sure you can, but we push the right buttons and you can be the Joker. And it just, oh God, dude, it was just so intense. It was the best movie I've seen. Absolutely go see it. I honestly hope that it changes the whole Batman DC universe. I would rather see stories like this, where the Batman that responds to this type of Joker is kind of demented in his own right. I don't want. I kind of thought that was the thing that people were going into the movie worrying about, was how come it lacked that typical Batman movie action type cartoon feel to it, and it wasn't. It was this super dark story that it opened up a whole other universe of all of those characters, where you can easily make another reactive with a Batman that's just as dark, that actually might kill people. You know, I would have to. I hate the Batmans where he just knocks everybody out, because I'm like, dude, these guys that he's dealing with are just the worst criminals. I would have to imagine that some of them are going to die. Like some of those moments are going to happen where they're going to die. And it's like, I would just like to see that whole shift where we try and relate the movie to that world that we saw in the Joker. I am too on the 9 scale. I would happily give it a 9.5, because it really was. I think it was my favorite movie, and easily the best one I've seen. And I don't know how. I don't know what other movie I would even try to say, oh yeah, okay, here's the next best movie right next to it. I just don't. Right now, it absolutely just kicked everybody's ass.
All
Great
right.
film.
Well, thank you for that, and 9.5 for your favorite film of all time. So
yeah, and let me just interject real quick before you start, Daniel. I just want to say, back when Heath Ledger did Joker, I was like, wow, this is like the most incredible Joker I've ever seen. But Joaquin Phoenix's performance in this film, with his physicality and the way he lost all the weight and the way the movie lived and died on his shoulders, the way he carried it, was phenomenal. He did a great job. But go ahead, Daniel. Sorry.
All right, very good. Well, I also think that this was very well done, and I found very few faults in it. I really love the music and the tone, and like I said, it was reminiscent of The Shining. I think this actually surpasses Ledger with the depth of the character, though I still love Ledger's performance. But here we are getting like the chrysalis from the caterpillar into the butterfly of the Joker, whereas Ledger was just full-blown enigmatic, chaotic.
Yeah.
He was anarchy.
Well,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
TM. But yeah, I mean, I loved this movie. I saw it on the IMAX, which I didn't think IMAX was just a really big screen. I remember going to the Science Center back when I was a kid, and IMAX was sort of this wraparound screen. Apparently, that's not the thing anymore. Now it's just like a really big screen with apparently high resolution. So I paid extra dollars on the gift card I had received for Christmas like 3 years ago. They'd been sitting around in a drawer.
I told you the secret.
Yes, you did tell me the secret, and I did not do it. But I really enjoyed this film. I think that it bears rewatching probably multiple times, and you can probably find different interpretations and different symbolism and different meaning within it. I think this is a film that is a character study, that is like a film school analysis type film. Like you would watch this film and analyze it to see how to do this type of thing, to set this kind of scene, to tell this kind of story, to maintain such it's such a big story, but it also feels confined. I mean, in a way, it's almost claustrophobic because Joaquin is on the screen 95% of the time. I mean, this hinges on his performance, and his performance almost alone carries it, but the rest of it's also just so good. So I'm going to go with like a 10 on this thing. I mean, I haven't given a 10 to anything. Whoa. And I don't see really anything wrong with this film. I mean, the only thing that might have been a detraction was De Niro, but that's just because I don't like him anymore due to his politics.
You know what
I wondered if you were to bring that up.
Was his shoes. Because he wears those big platform shoes. You ever seen that?
Oh, yeah, he definitely does.
Yeah, and they showed him on that shot when he's walking out, and that's all I could think about. I was like, okay, so the very next shot when we don't see your feet, De Niro, you're going to be in those platforms and giving yourself about 3 inches of height.
Yeah, and I know why he was in this film, and it's because of Taxi Driver and King of Comedy. So I almost have to give it a pass. Like it's like this subtle nod that makes it a bit of a trilogy, according to our pal Mike C, who he actually wants to come on and talk about either of those films and then give us his related perspective on this film. I think that'd be really good. And Shaheen, who was going to be our original guest, he of course fell ill. So Scott, you filled in admirably. I think we're going to have him on for another Batman-related movie where we'll get his take on Joker, where we do one of the inspirations for this, which was the Killing Joke, which I believe is an animated movie version of a comic book limited series that was from probably the mid-90s, Robert? Does that sound about right?
The original Killing Joke was like 87, 88. But yeah, the animated version came out just like 2 years ago, year and ago, something like that.
All right, yeah. So we'll be hitting that up with him. And so basically we're going to be talking about Joker and Joker-related stuff in future episodes again, because I think that there's still even more to like dig into. And I'll have wanted to watch this again before we do that. But, next week, we're going to be bringing you an obliquely Halloween-themed flick, everyone.
Ooh.
It is the Karate Kid, not the first thing you think of as a Halloween film.
Oh, yeah.
But you've got Daniel the Bully dressed as a shower, fighting the Cobra Kai guys, all dressed badass style in the skeleton outfits before they get their asses kicked by Mr. Miyagi. So that's going to be our episode next week, the Karate Kid, with the uniquely awesome Raylene Lightheart of Blastoff with Johnny Rocket. So that will be the one for next week for the happy Halloweens. And any final words for our audience? Well, actually, before we do that, Robert, how can people support the show? What can they do to make this show be better? And then we'll get final words from Scott, and then we'll say goodnight.
Well, the best way you can make the show better is to interact with us and tell us what we're doing wrong, tell us how we're wrong, and have good arguments, because we love to argue about that sort of thing. But if you want to support us, you can support us on Patreon. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. You can leave a review on iTunes. You can tell a friend. You can buy some of our merch at Treptor.com. You could, get on Facebook and be like, yo, have you heard this new show? It's not even a new show, but you could pretend like it's a new show. You could, aren't we, Daniel? Hey, aren't we on like some libertarian ranked podcast list? I don't know if we have any votes yet. You could go and vote for us there. What do you know what the address is, Daniel?
I want to say it's podcastranker.com. And yeah, we're on there and we got a couple of votes. And so check us out, raise our profile, get us some more earballs. That'd be really great.
Yeah, do that. And listen and tell friends. Thanks, everybody.
All right. And Scott, thank you so much for being our guest. We'd love to have you back again in the future. Just let us know what you'd be interested in doing. And any final words for the audience before we say goodnight from last night on the Last Nighters episode 94 of the show?
No, just a friendly reminder that you got banned for the word tranny and I didn't.
Well played, sir. All right, everyone. Good night for last night.
In the early days of the internet, radical libertarians were scattered, lonely, and faceless. Without direction, they resigned to scour the web, sifting through content providers in a wasteland plagued by YouTube demonetization, Facebook jail, and covert internet censorship. But then, in 2017, the Libertarian Union was formed. Finally, the average Joe libertarian could find a thriving community of independent podcasters and content providers, all in one convenient location. At Libertarian Union, we'll always have the latest news, interviews, discussions, and even movie reviews. With hundreds of episodes and more added all the time, you'll always find something fresh at libertarianunion.com.